Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. On a crisp autumn morning in October 2005, the stillness of Fairbrook, a small town nestled in the heart of the Midwest, was shattered by an alarming discovery. It began with a pair of local boys, out on their bikes, racing down a familiar dirt path that wound through the woods bordering the town. Laughter echoed through the trees, but that laughter quickly morphed into shock and confusion when they stumbled upon something unexpected. At the edge of a clearing, beneath a thick canopy of fallen leaves and branches, lay a body. The boys, initially hesitant, moved closer, their innocent curiosity turning to horror as they recognized the unmistakable signs of trauma. A worn jacket clung to the lifeless figure, its once vibrant color faded in the dampness of the forest full. Panicking, they dashed back along the path, their bicycles clattering in the rush to find an adult. By the time the local sheriff's department arrived, the boys had ushered a small crowd of onlookers to the scene. The sheriff, a stoic man in his 50s named Hank Caldwell, surveyed the area with a grim determination. He ordered the perimeter of the clearing to be secured, and the gathering crowd was ushered behind yellow police tape, the vibrant hue painfully contrasting against the muted tones of the woods. As investigators began their work, it became evident that this was no mere misfortune. Body belonged to Sara Jennings, a 23-year-old waitress who had been on her way to begin a shift at the diner just days earlier. With no indication of foul play found initially, the authorities found themselves at the precipice of a mystery that would grip and haunt Fairbrook for years to come. The questions hanging in the air were heavy. Who had done this, and why? The once peaceful town now braced itself for the inevitable unraveling of a dark truth, one that would stir up long-buried secrets. The victim. Sara Jennings was more than just a familiar face in Fairbrook. She was a vibrant thread in the fabric of the community, but her bright smile and infectious laughter, she had long been a source of warmth at the fireside diner, where she worked shifts serving pancakes and coffee to the locals. Her petite frame and freckled face concealed a tenacious spirit, one that defied the quiet, unassuming life that Fairbrook offered. Known for her passion for singing, Sara often participated in local talent shows, her voice ringing through the town square like a clarion call. Friends said she had dreams of moving to the city to pursue a music career. But for now, she was content to weave her melodies into the hearts of those who gathered at the diner. Rumors flowed through Fairbrook that she was close with a young man named Mike, an aspiring artist who split his time between working at a small gallery and sketching the vibrant landscapes of their town. But as investigators began to peel back the layers of Sara's life, a more complicated picture emerged. She had been attending community college and working part-time to support her ambitions, but financial burdens weighed heavily on her. Witnesses recall seeing her argue with someone outside the diner a week before her death, a confrontation that left her in tears. That morning, shortly before her body was discovered, she had stopped by her friend's house to drop off her beloved guitar, an item she could no longer bear to carry with her. Burdened by the weight of dreams slipping away, it was a decision that now felt hauntingly final. As the sheriff's office delved into Sara's life, they found more than familiar anecdotes. There were complexities buried beneath her sunny exterior. Friends began to share their concerns about Sara's recent mood shifts and the mounting pressures that seemed to envelop her like a shroud. With every revelation, the gentle town of Fairbrook was forced to confront the stark possibility that their picturesque existence held painful truth-hidden fractures that could lead to a darkness no one had expected. The crime scene, the clearing where Sara's body was found, became a focal point for investigators. The rustling leaves above now carrying whispers of disbelief and dread. The crime scene was meticulously outlined with yellow tape, its darkness creating a barrier between the grim reality of the forest and the naive innocence of the town beyond. As sunlight filtered through the branches, it illuminated an unsettling tableau. Nature continued its routine, unfazed by the human chaos unfolding beneath it. Detective Laura Matthews, a seasoned investigator with a sharp mind and an empathetic heart, arrived to take over the investigation. Slipping on gloves, she crouched beside Sara's body, her keen gaze absorbing every detail. The location suggested a struggle, with patches of disturbed soil nearby. Evidence markers indicated a scattering of personal items, a silver necklace, a crumpled bus ticket, and fragments of what appeared to be Sara's clipboard, the one she used to jot down orders at the diner. A medical examiner, Dr. Helene Frost, later confirmed that Sara had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The severity of the injuries pointed to a violent confrontation, raising suspicions among the detectives that her last moments had been fraught with terror. As the scene was processed for forensic evidence, the somber atmosphere intense. Each item collected was a clue, a speck of a puzzle waiting to be pieced together. Just beyond the clearing, a discarded cigarette butt was found, its remnants indicating it had been used recently. Matthews made a note of it. While seemingly insignificant, it could prove vital. The crew worked efficiently, combing the area for any overlooked clues, ensuring that every detail, no matter how small, would be meticulously documented. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows across the ground, Matthews took a moment to breathe amidst the chaos. Each moment spent on this crime scene felt like an intrusion into a final moment of peace. For Sara, life extinguished too soon. The questions echoed in her mind. Who would do this? What led up to that fateful encounter? With the town milling with anxiety and sorrow, Matthews knew that they were racing against the clock, desperation for answers mounting as Fairbrook held its breath, waiting for the dark to fully unfold. The early investigation. In the days following Sara's discovery, the atmosphere in Fairbrook morphed from shock to an unsettling blend of fear and suspicion. The community, once a close-knit fabric of familiarity and safety, began to fray at the edges. Conversations turned hushed in the streets, resentful whispers punctuated the lines at the diner, and murmurs of accusations infiltrated homes as paranoia seeped into the lives of longtime residents. Detective Laura Matthews and her partner, Officer Ben Tyler, quickly set about interviewing Sara's friends and acquaintances. The diner remained a central hub, and they started with her co-workers, hoping to unravel any significant relationships or potential conflicts. Sara's best friend, Katie, a quintessential small-town girl with big dreams, became the first source of insight. Katie's tears flowed as she recounted recurring arguments between Sara and Mike, whose presence had faded as Sara's ambitions grew. Their once adoring relationship transformed, leaving Sara tangled in conflict and emotion. They just drifted apart, Katie explained, her voice trembling. But I never thought it would come to this. I swear, she was so happy just a week ago. As the interviews progressed, the detectives began to notice an unsettling pattern. Several residents mentioned sightings of a man lingering near the diner in the weeks leading up to Sara's death, described variously as scruffy, disheveled, and unpredictably loud. He evoked a sense of discomfort among the local. One waitress recalled a particularly unsettling incident where he had confronted Sara, demanding she accompany him to the nearby park for an unknown reason. Meanwhile, Matthews pored over Sara's phone record. Among her last messages, a conversation with the mysterious number drew her attention. Its content suggested urgency, hinting at an argument that had spiraled out of control. But even as the threads began to surface, it remained unclear how this all connected to Sara's tragic end. With each passing day, the pressure mounted. The sheriff's office received a flurry of tips, ranging from the mundane to the bizarre, the frantic ramblings of a community desperate for answers. For Matthews, it was both a burden and a beacon. She had to sift through the noise, convinced that within the chaos lay the vital clues that would lead to justice for Sara. The small town held its breath, each heart gripped with uncertainty, and the investigators were determined not to let them down. The dead ends. With every lead pursued, Detective Laura Matthews felt the weight of expectation pressing down like an anvil. As she and Officer Ben Tyler delved further into the investigation, they found themselves retracing their steps more often than not, circling around the same barren ground. Each avenue of inquiry seemed increasingly fruitless, amplifying the collective tension that cloaked Fairbrook. The interviews continued, but the anticipated breakthroughs were scant. Witnesses were hesitant or vague, providing details that seemed to dance around the truth rather than point decisively towards it. The man who had been seen lingering near the diner was identified as Tony Mills, a transient with a history of mental health issues and sporadic run-ins with the law. Yet, after tracking him down, Matthews found him to be aloof and disoriented. Incoherent ramblings emerged in place of helpful information, and he denied any knowledge of Sara, muttering fragmented stories that shifted erratically. Frustrated but undeterred, Matthews turned to the evidence collected from the crime scene. The cigarette butt had been sent for analysis with hopes that it might tie more clearly to someone's identity. Days dragged on as the forensic lab reported back no match. It was the first significant dead end, but not the last. A search of Sara's social media accounts yielded minimal insights. Her closest friends seemed equally puzzled, unable to offer any specific threat or lead to guide the investigation forward. In the meantime, the media began to descend on Fairbrook, headlines amplifying the fear and intrigue. Local waitress found murdered. Who did it? Flashed across screens in newspapers, stoking the flames of panic. Investigators found themselves fielding calls from an anxious public, each query punctuated by a layer of speculation as fear gripped the tap. The pressure from the sheriff's office intensified, demanding progress amid the growing scrutiny. Matthews could sense the dwindling patience. With each passing day, the case grew colder, chilling not only the soul of the investigation, but the heart of the community. Each moment spent backtracking on leads felt like a step away from the justice Sara deserved. Yet, deeply inside, Matthews remained resolute. She wasn't prepared to let frustration defeat her. She would find a way through this darkness, even if it meant confronting her own inner doubts. Each dead end could potentially mask a hidden truth, and Matthews was determined to keep pushing forward, no matter the obstacles. A break in the case. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation seemed to stagnate, leading Detective Laura Matthews to question her approach. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but she refused to surrender to despair. Late one afternoon, after a particularly troubling meeting with the sheriff's office, Matthews returned to the station to review the case files one more time. Perhaps the answers had been there all along, waiting to be seen through a different lens. Sitting in the dim light of her office, she thumbed through the stack of witness accounts. Among them, she stumbled upon an overlooked detail in the statement provided by Sarah's best friend, Katie. In her testimony, Katie had mentioned something about a series of cryptic messages she had seen Sarah receive in the weeks leading up to her death. It seemed that Sarah had been exchanging messages with a number, saved under a name that wasn't familiar to anyone else. Was it romantic interests, a fleeting friend, or something more ominous? Eagerly, Matthews retrieved Sarah's phone records, once again, cross-referencing them with Katie's mention. A sinking feeling washed over her as she traced the number back to an app known for its anonymity. Here was the clandestine thread that could unravel everything. It suggested that Sarah had been communicating with someone who wasn't in her immediate circle, but clearly had an emotional pull. Crunching numbers and piecing together timestamps revealed a pattern. Sara had been in contact with this mystery person, most frequently during the tense days leading up to the confrontation. Outside the dine, perhaps their interactions had become increasingly urgent, even troubling. Matthews wasted no time, making a note to dig deeper into this number. Then, in a stroke of luck, the forensic lab came through with news. They had finally matched the cigarette butt from the crime scene. It didn't belong to any local but to a resident who had been reported missing only days after Sarah's death. His name was Nathan Granger, a 30-year-old man with a troubled past, known for his erratic behavior. Feeling the jolt of adrenaline coursing through her, Matthews finally sensed the gravitational pull of a breakthrough, as if a glimmer of hope had emerged from the dark. As she turned to inform Officer Tyler, she couldn't shake the sense that the pieces were finally beginning to align. One mystery intertwined with another, and Fairbrook, once cloaked in fear, had the chance to confront the ghosts of its past and reveal the truth lying just beneath the surface. The suspect, with Nathan Granger's name now central to the investigation, Detective Laura Matthews felt an unsettling urgency. His troubled past revealed a man wrestling with a history of addiction and erratic behavior, prompting her to wonder how deeply his personal demons could intertwine with Sarah's tragic fate. As the detectives began to dig further into his life, the chilling reality of their discovery settled like a heavy fog in the air. Granger had been reported missing about a week after Sarah's death. Around the same time, friends and family noted his increasingly unstable behavior. Neighbors recounted how they had witnessed him arguing with an unknown individual on multiple occasions, each encounter growing progressively heated. The police had initially labeled his disappearance as voluntary. Now, in light of Sarah's case, it transformed into a distressing avenue of inquiry. As Matthews learned more about Granger's dark history with drugs and mental health, she encountered even deeper concerns. Friends described a volatile temper and a fascination with violence, painting a picture of a man whose life had spiraled out of control. Yet, they also recalled moments of lucidity, where he would create heart and seem genuinely charming, explanations of brilliance buried beneath his erratic behavior. Desperate for answers, Matthews and Officer Ben Tyler managed to locate Granger's last known address. The rundown apartment complex had seen better days, and as they approached the door, the air felt thick with tension. Peering through grimy windows revealed emptiness within a tableau of silence that hinted at neglect and abandonment. Knocking on the door, they were met with the unmistakable sound of scuffling inside. A moment later, it swung open to reveal Nathan, his disheveled hair matched only by the haunted look in his eyes. His initial shock quickly morphed into suspicion as he sized up the detectives with wary incredulity. "Why are you here?" he rasped, his voice barely audible as he leaned against the doorframe. Matthews introduced herself, careful to control the tenor of the conversation. We need to ask you a few questions about Sara Jennings. Granger's expression shifted, anger flashing briefly before he diverted his gaze. The anticipation hung heavy in the air, a race against time for the truth. I don't know anything, he muttered, his demeanor shifting between defensiveness and despair. As the conversation continued, Matthews pressed him on his whereabouts during the days surrounding Sara's death. His responses were evasive, filled with contradicting statements that fragmented any semblance of an alibi. The further they probed, the more panic grew in his eyes, a telltale sign of a man haunted by secrets. In that moment, Matthews sensed a crack in his facade, a vulnerability that could unravel the tightly wound story he had constructed. Each question was a delicate dance, and with each second, she felt the weight of evidence grow, the pieces of Sara's case colliding imperceptibly with Granger's chaotic existence. In this grim meeting, it became evident. The answers they sought might be found in the twisted narratives of his life, and if they could just peel away the layers, they might find the key to unlocking a tragic reality. The trial. Months had passed since the search for justice had begun, and now the small town of Fairbrook braced itself for the legal proceedings that would unfold. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the courtroom buzzed with townsfolk eager to witness the trial of Nathan Granger unfold. Spectators filled the benches, faces etched with worry and uncertainty, each harboring the hope that clarity might emerge from the depths of despair. Detective Laura Matthews sat in the front row, her mind flashing back to the pieces of evidence, collected cigarette butt, the cryptic messages and the broken fragments of Sara's life. Granger had been arrested and charged with first-degree murder, and now it was up to the prosecution to present their case. The honor of representing Sara Jennings fell to a local district attorney named Rachel Price, a woman seasoned yet passionate, whose determination to seek justice pulsed through her every word. On the first day of testimony, the courtroom filled with the emotional weight of Sara's story. Friends, family, and co-workers took the stand, sharing their recollections of her laughter, her dreams, and the way her light had been extinguished too soon. Matthew's heart sank as the cruel imagery painted by the witnesses illustrated the essence of Sara's vibrant life, stolen by senseless violence. Each recounting was punctuated with emotions far deeper than words. Sorrow coursed through the room as they recalled her ambition, laughter, and warmth. When it came time for the prosecution to present their evidence, Matthews felt a surge of anticipation. They called multiple witnesses who had seen Granger near the diner on the night of Sara's death, weaving a web of accumulated evidence against him. Surveillance footage surprisingly surfaced, revealing Granger lurking in the shadows just moments before she disappeared. Each clip felt like a nail in the coffin of his innocence. Granger's defense attorney mounted a challenge, presenting Granger's tumultuous past as a catalyst for delusion, attempting to paint him as a man with a fragile mental state, a victim of his own chaotic life. In the atmosphere of despair, the defense argued against the reliability of eyewitness testimony and tried to invoke reasonable doubt. As the days unfolded, emotions mounted and tension thickened. Matthews couldn't help but feel as though they were fighting a two-front battle, a quest for justice, overshadowed by the memories of a beloved community member lost. Witness after witness provided powerful testimony, but it was a final, unexpected twist that would tilt the trial days Later, an anonymous tip had emerged just before closing arguments, claiming to know the details of Granger's whereabouts on the night of the murder. Now all eyes in the courtroom exchanged tense glances, the room locking in collective breath as the possibility of new evidence loomed on the horizon. A distant echo of justice dared to resonate through the hall, its impact yet to be determined. But the courtroom held firm in one breath. We would soon know the truth about what happened in the woods, where darkness had fallen, and Sara's dreams had fallen in silence forever. The aftermath. As the verdict echoed through the courtroom, a charged silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket. We, the jury, find the defendant, Nathan Granger, guilty of second-degree murder. The words reverberated, hauntingly final, leading a mixture of relief and sorrow in their way. Detectives Laura Matthews and Ben Tyler exchanged glances, knowing that while justice had been served for Sara, the scars of the tragedy would linger like shadows over Fairbrook. In the weeks that followed, life in the small town began its slow and painful recovery. Sara's parents organized a memorial service at the community center, transforming it into a space of reflection and healing. Friends and neighbors came together to honor her memory, filling the room with photos, acoustic tunes on guitars, and shared stories of laughter that lived beyond her absence. As Matthews watched from the back of the gathering, a rush of emotions washed over her, the bittersweet culmination of a case that had grown intricate and raw, yet had also revived a sense of community. Back at the diner, where Sara once brightened mornings with her radiant spirit, the atmosphere shifted. The regulars would sit in silence, lost in their own memories of her laughter, while the staff adorned her empty seat with a small bouquet of daisies, a tribute to the girl whose dreams had been snatched too soon. It served as a daily reminder for all that the community's peace came at a cost. For Matthews, this case had marked a pivotal point in her career. The aftermath of Granger's conviction stayed with her, leading her to contemplate the connections that linger long after the police tape is cut and the noise subsides. She resumed her routine, but as the town transitioned back to normalcy, she reflected on the fragility of life and the complexities of human nature. While the verdict offered closure to many, it also posed silent questions. What could have been done differently? Could they have intervened sooner in Granger's life to prevent this tragedy? Doubts gnawed at Matthews, but resilience became her guiding light. If her resolve could lead to one more life being saved, one more troubled soul redirected, then perhaps Sara's story could inspire change in a world that often felt indifferent to the paths of those in need. In this small Midwestern town, the resurgence of hope flickered alongside haunted memories, a dichotomy of healing and heartache. Fairbrook would never be the same. But in its collective mourning, it emerged stronger, banding together in a shared understanding that the bonds of community are forged through both joy and sorrow. As Sara's song slowly faded, it left a melody imprinted in the heart of Fairbrook, echoing reminders of love, loss, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Reflection. Months after the trial concluded, Detective Laura Matthews found herself seated on a bench in the town square, watching the world pass by with a bittersweet sense of nostalgia. The sun began to set, casting golden hues across Fairbrook, illuminating the lives that continue to thrive despite the shadows of the past. She marveled at how resilience seemed to bloom despite the weight of grief that lingered in the air, a reminder of what had been lost, but also of what had been fought for. Sara Jennings' tragic end had rippled through the community, stitching together lives that once seemed separate. The healing process had been uneven. For some, it was still raw, while others had found a way to move forward, embracing vulnerability as a strength. Matthews contemplated her role, how her relentless pursuit of truth had forced the townsfolk to confront the uncomfortable realities of both light and darkness. Through the sorrow, moments of clarity emerged. She recalled how the case had not only highlighted grief, but also ignited a conversation about mental health resources that Fairbrook desperately needed. The community began to advocate for change, forging connections with local organizations to support those like Nathan Granger, ensuring no one would fall between the cracks again.